Tonight, new taunts and the direct threat. Donald Trump's plans to use economic force to annex Canada. Calling the border an artificial line.
They should be a state. That's why I told Trudeau.
The icy rebuke from Canadians.
I think we should just be laughing at the fact that he's saying that.
And the Prime Minister.
Yes, I'm in the race.
What the first declared candidate in the race to lead the Liberals is saying about his bid.
My success in business is something that appeals to a lot of people.
Also followed in the East China Sea, an exclusive ride aboard a Canadian warship.
Starboard 200.
Plus, new details about the Vegas Cybertruck bomber police now say used ChatGPT to plan the attack. And getting on par with the digital age.
It's golf, but it's reimagined.
The new Pro League that's got technology down to a T.
CTV National News with Omar Sachedina.
Good evening. 13 days before he officially takes office, Donald Trump is not ruling out using military force to claim new territory and economic coercion to compel Canada to merge with the United States. Late tonight, Trump posting this image of Canada covered in the Stars and Stripes and another map referencing both countries as the United States. The escalated American threat prompted a rare show of solidarity today between Justin Trudeau and Pierre Poilievre, who responded by saying the union will never happen. CTV's Washington Bureau Chief Joy Malbin on the deepening divide.
It seems Donald Trump's America First agenda could include territorial expansion, suggesting, shockingly, the U.S. could use economic force to take over Canada.
Canada and the United States, that would really be something. You get rid of that artificially drawn line, and you take a look at what that looks like, and it would also be much better for national security. Why are we supporting a country 200 billion plus a year? Our military is at their disposal. All of these other things, they should be a state.
Not exactly how you treat your neighbor and biggest trading partner. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, who resigned yesterday, fired back, saying there isn't a snowball's chance in hell that Canada would become part of the United States. Trump criticized U.S. spending on Canadian goods like cars, lumber, and dairy, ignoring long-standing trade agreements, threatening crushing tariffs, and urging his friend Wayne Gretzky to run politically.
The great one, Wayne Gretzky, I said, run for prime minister, you'll win it'll take 2 seconds. But he said, well, am I going to run for prime minister or governor? You tell me. I said, I don't know, let's make it governor. I like it better.
It's not just Canada. Trump refused to rule out using U.S. military force to retake the Panama Canal and seize Greenland, sending his son, Don Jr., to the mineral-rich Danish territory.
Here as tourists, seeing it looks like an incredible place.
Government officials were clear Greenland is still not for sale, Trump threatening them too with tariffs if they don't hand over the island.
They should give it up because we need it for national security. That's for the free world. You look outside, you have China ships all over the place. You have Russian ships all over the place. We're not letting that happen.
It may sound like bluster, maybe a negotiating tactic, but if Trump is one thing, it's unpredictable. And former Trump officials warn, take him seriously. Omar?
All right, Joy Malbin in Washington. Here at home, the clash between the two countries is triggering a lot of reaction, and tracking it all is CTV's Mike Couture. Mike.
Well, Omar, much of the reaction has been defiant that Canada will remain independent. It's also coming from a number of people who are publicly and not so publicly hoping to lead this country. In a post on X, Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly pushed back against the president-elect, saying our economy and people are strong, adding, we will never back down in the face of threats. A forceful statement from someone rumored to be a top contender for the Liberal leadership, just a day after the Prime Minister announced his resignation.
I believe in Canada, and I'm optimistic about our future.
Former Member of Parliament Frank Baylis is the first to officially declare his candidacy for the leadership, and he has a different take on Trump's threat.
No big deal. Let him spout off the way he wants to. we'll negotiate if and when the time comes.
But that time is coming in less than 2 weeks, when Trump could impose 25% tariffs on all Canadian goods going into the United States. And this former ambassador to the U.S. believes the Prime Minister should stay out of this fight as he's on his way out of office.
I think he should leave the field to the premiers and other members of the federal cabinet and the opposition to react to this, and he should stay out of it.
Opposition leaders have been pushing back on social media. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre saying Canada will never be the 51st state, period. NDP leader Jagmeet Singh posted, "Cut the crap, Donald. No Canadian wants to join you." Singh also echoed an argument that tariffs will hurt jobs on both sides of the border.
It's scary. I definitely feel like it's something that we should be worried about.
Sounds like invasion, sounds like an act of war, so even if it's economic.
Now, to calm those fears and concerns from premiers, Prime Minister Trudeau has invited them to Ottawa next Wednesday, where a strategy on dealing with the U.S. will be at the top of the agenda. Omar.
All right, Mike, thank you. And the outgoing U.S. president praised the outgoing Canadian Prime Minister today. Joe Biden saying he's proud to call Justin Trudeau a friend and that, quote, the world is better off because of him. He says Trudeau led with commitment, optimism, and strategic vision. Biden says he called Trudeau yesterday to express his appreciation for their partnership. Trudeau's decision to resign came on the same day he revealed the Governor-General granted his request to prorogue Parliament, which wipes the legislative slate clean and leaves key Liberal promises in limbo. CTV's Rachel Aiello tells us which ones.
And it's time for a reset.
Defending his decision to prorogue, Justin Trudeau said Parliament has been paralyzed for months. But not bringing MPs back to work in Ottawa until March 24th means key law changes the Liberals promised may never become a reality.
Effectively speaking, all of the parliamentary business ends.
Among the unfulfilled government pledges are the $250 checks for working Canadians, expanded gun control measures, plus legislation to crack down on online harms and make citizenship and electoral rule changes. While bills that have been killed could be reinstated if other parties agree, that looks unlikely, as today the opposition accused the government of using the parliamentary tactic to halt a committee's plan to expedite the next non-confidence motion.
Rather than allow that to happen, Justin Trudeau has selfishly shut down Parliament to avoid accountability.
During prorogation, the Prime Minister and his cabinet remain in their roles, which is how the government says it can carry on with enacting elements of the Canada-US border plan. But the CRA's plan to still enact new capital gains rules based only on proposed legislation is perplexing to some.
I think it would be inappropriate, and again I use the word disrespectful to Parliament, to actually proceed in a manner that would not recognize the need for a full and proper debate.
The Finance Department says when Parliament resumes, if no bill passes to make the tax change law, they'd stop enforcing it, which may be the likeliest outcome, as the government could fall soon after the spring speech from the throne. Omar?
All right, Rachel, thank you. The decision for Meta to ditch third-party fact-checkers on Facebook and Instagram is prompting fears of misinformation as it prepares for Trump's return to power. CTV's Heather Wright on the shift and where the changes leave Canada.
But the fact-checkers have just been too politically biased,
calling the recent U.S. election a cultural tipping point. Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg announced today the company will no longer fact-check content, saying it's a way to restore free speech on its platforms.
The reality is that this is a trade-off. It means we're going to catch less bad stuff, but we'll also reduce the number of innocent people's posts and accounts that we accidentally take down.
Facebook, Instagram, and Threads will now use community notes, which relies on users to add comments to posts that may contain false or misleading information. The protocol is similar to the one used by X and marks a big shift for the company, which for years has wrestled with how to deal with the spread of misinformation.
Now they're essentially telegraphing to all who will listen, they're giving up on that because the political winds are changing. Donald Trump is coming in.
While experts say Meta's fact-checking system wasn't perfect, it was at least something.
What I'm worried about is this just signals the complete abandonment of strategies
to combat misleading information, lies.
This change is only being made in the United States. Meta platforms in other countries, including Canada, are for now not affected. But with an impending tariff war and a Canadian election looming, experts say this change will have an influence north of the border.
And there is absolutely no doubt that this is having an impact. You're seeing the same kind of rhetoric emerge in Canadian politics.
Meta says it will monitor the rollout of these changes over the next year before expanding them to any other countries. Heather Wright, CTV News, Toronto.
Stunning new revelations tonight about the Cybertruck explosion in Las Vegas on New Year's Day. Police say Matthew Livelsberger, the special ops soldier who blew himself up, used ChatGPT to search the amount of explosives he would need, how and where to buy the fireworks for his explosive, and if he were to use a firearm to set off the explosive, how fast the bullet would need to travel. Police believe it is the first large-scale incident in the U.S. planned with the help of ChatGPT. In Southern California, more than 30,000 people are being ordered to evacuate. The city of Los Angeles has declared a state of emergency after the Pacific Palisades wildfire, which has now grown to more than 500 hectares, started this morning, and strong winds in the forecast are expected to fan the flames. A BC woman who was under investigation for performing unauthorized midwife services has been charged with manslaughter after the death of a newborn.
A 77-year-old woman named Gloria LeMay was identified. Investigators believe that Miss LeMay's involvement in the birth process led to the child's injuries and eventual death.
LeMay has a long history of providing midwife services without registration. In 2002, she was sentenced to 5 months in jail for assisting in 10 home births. She remains in custody ahead of a court appearance tomorrow. A Canadian warship is beginning the new year patrolling contested waters, conducting multiple operations near the East China Sea. CTV's Adrian Gobriel is embedded on board and shares his close encounter with a Chinese warship.
With guided precision and armed personnel on watch, HMCS Ottawa slipped from its port in the southern city of Sasebo, Japan, to the open waters, passing through a final channel to mark the Royal Canadian Navy's first international deployment of 2025. Shortly after the transition from shore to sea was complete, the ship's personnel quickly learned their frigate, that bears the name of our nation's capital, was being closely watched. Less than 12 hours after leaving the south of Japan, a Chinese warship appeared on our radar. And as you'll see behind me, on the horizon is the silhouette of that very ship, the Chinese Navy, shadowing the HMS Ottawa. We soon learned that the vessel tracking the Canadian Navy's every move is the Benjiao, a Chinese Navy guided missile warship.
That vessel basically asked us a question about who are you and where you're going. We let them know who we were. We let them know that we're operating in international waters in accordance with international law.
We watched as the Chinese warship moved from our port side to starboard. HMCS Ottawa's commanding officer, Adriano Lozer, expects the Benjiao to shadow the Canadian Navy as it collects data.
That vessel, because we are in these regional waters, has decided to stick around us and is currently 7 miles on our beam and has been in and out from about 2 to 7 miles all day.
As the Chinese Navy keep watch, HMCS Ottawa is flying the flag of the United Nations as it participates in Operation Neon during its first days at sea, enforcing UN sanctions against North Korea. Though this deployment will soon transition to Operation Horizon, a multi-nation effort to promote peace and rules-based order in the Indo-Pacific, a region that has increasingly become more volatile as China tries to rewrite maritime boundaries and international laws that promote free passage on the open sea.
One of the biggest things that every Canadian should be focused on is that we have free and unfettered use of the world's oceans in accordance with international law, because it's something that sustains our peace and security and our prosperity.
On this deployment, we'll be meeting up with Allied Navy vessels while at sea, and they'll be joining us for part of this operation. And if the early signs of the Chinese Navy on our tail are any indication, the next several days, which we'll be covering, will be eventful. Omar.
Adrian Gabriel, thank you. Several thousand kilometers away from the East China Sea, more than 100 people are dead after a powerful 7.1 magnitude quake rocked southern Tibet. Emergency crews dug through the rubble of heavily damaged homes, searching for survivors. The quake was centered in a rural county known as the Northern Gateway to the Everest region. It also shook buildings in neighboring Nepal, sending people fleeing into the streets. Coming up, a contractor con.
Money was still going out the door. I kind of had that, it's like, there's something wrong.
One couple's fight for payback. A New Brunswick couple's dream home project became their worst nightmare after they say a contractor ran without doing the work. In part 1 of our W5 series, CTV's Sarah Plowman brings us the fight for justice.
What was supposed to be a retirement dream for the Ridleys is now a daily reminder of what went wrong.
Your first thought is, oh my God, I can't believe that we had this happen to us. I forgot how big that piece was.
Julie and John Ridley bought their house about 2.5 years ago and hired contractor Brandon Boudreau to build a second story atop their garage. He came recommended, offered a quote lower than anyone else. They e-transferred him money for materials, workers. In total, more than $45,000.
When it first started, when things were coming together, when work wasn't being done, but money was still going out the door, I kind of had that, it's like, there's something wrong, there's something wrong.
They asked for a contract, but say all they got were excuses. When Boudreau did show up, he brought a crane to remove the garage roof.
He was here for maybe an hour and a half, maybe, and then that was it. We never saw him again.
The roof sat in their backyard for 6 months. A tarp covered the garage, but there was water damage. The Ridleys had seemingly hired a bad contractor, and they're not alone. Every year, Canadians across this country deal with irresponsible contractors, or those who purposefully defraud others out of money. As of November, the Better Business Bureau received more than 150 complaints about general contractors and more than 140 reports of home improvement scams, a type of scam the BBB consistently ranks as one of the riskiest for Canadians. The Ridleys say police first told them their case was a civil matter. Did you feel like you had nowhere to turn?
Yeah.
There is nowhere to turn.
Yeah, there really isn't anywhere to
go. You go to a lawyer or the Crown, they say it's a civil case. So you better have 20 grand or you're not having a civil case.
They threatened to sue Boudreau or go to police, but that led nowhere. They turned to Facebook, only to learn there were allegedly others, and pushed for police to investigate.
There was a lot to it. Had to kind of fight and argue and push my way through and dig my heels in, but it was finally accepted.
A police investigation led to a charge of fraud over $5,000. Over the summer, Boudreau pleaded guilty.
You'll see that all the siding has been removed.
As they awaited his sentencing, they questioned whether they'd get their money back.
To take $45,000 and put it away saved takes one pile of work.
In mid-October, a judge sentenced Boudreau to serve a conditional sentence for 2 years less a day and to repay the Ridleys what he owed them plus damages, nearly $52,000. Boudreau stood in court and said, "I would just like to apologize to the victims for what I did. It was wrong, and I was in the wrong state of mind. And I apologize. It won't happen again, and I won't go down that road again." His lawyer told the court Boudreau's arrest probably saved his life, saying his relationship was in trouble: alcohol, drugs, gambling. He didn't set out to defraud the people, but once you have the money and you have those 4 problems, you get extremely reckless. The Ridleys walked out as one of the rare and lucky ones. They got their money back.
I'm stunned. I'm absolutely gobsmacked. It's awesome.
Awesome for that family, but sitting in court beside them, there were others who say Boudreau also owes them money. One family's fight to get it back through court has only just started. We'll share their story tomorrow. Sarah Plowman, CTV News, Fredericton.
Still ahead.
The magic to ride.
remembering Peter Yarrow of the legendary folk group Peter, Paul and Mary. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's office said today he will attend former U.S. President Jimmy Carter's funeral on Thursday.
He left the world better than he found it.
Carter's flag-draped casket was flown into Washington this morning, where thousands of Americans are now paying their final respects in the Capitol Rotunda. Carter died just over a week ago at the age of 100. While he was in office, Carter pardoned a founding member of the folk music trio Peter, Paul and Mary, who has died.
Oh, pop the magic dragon, live by the sea.
Peter Yarrow was a singer-songwriter and a social activist. The group's hits included Puff the Magic Dragon and If I Had a Hammer. In 1970, Yarrow pleaded guilty to taking indecent liberties with a 14-year-old girl, but was pardoned just over a decade later by Carter. Yarrow died in his Manhattan home after a battle with bladder cancer. He was 86. Still ahead, teeing up a new high-tech, high-profile driven golf league. A new professional golf league is in full swing tonight in Florida. CTV's Paul Hollingsworth on the high-tech tee-off.
Some of the best golfers in the world have joined forces to tee up and inject major changes into the sport. The Tomorrow's Golf League, known as the TGL, features golfers competing using virtual golf simulators.
It's golf, but it's reimagined, sort of trying to take golf into the 21st century.
The venue in Florida has real grass and sand. Rory McIlroy says it's a showcase of the overall advancements in virtual golf technology.
I think the scale of the thing is the thing for me that blows my mind.
This new league also features rules that will be new to golf, including a 40-second shot clock. Each team has 4 timeouts per match. The hammer allows teams to double the points per hole or forfeit the hole if they decline the hammer challenge by the opposing team. The overtime shootout will measure the longest tee shots, and referees will supervise each match.
These are kind of some of the changes you might like to see one day in real golf. And I think it's fun. I think it's different. I think it's a great opportunity to test things out.
TSN golf analyst Bob Weeks says the new league is aimed at golf's growing younger audience.
The biggest demographic group in the United States right now following golf is 18 to 34. The average age of the Canadian golfer right now is 39. So it's starting to swing a little bit younger, and I think golf has to follow that.
TGL golfers will compete every Tuesday for 8 weeks. The competition wraps up on March 4th. Paul Hollingsworth, CTV News, Halifax.
And that's a snapshot of this Tuesday. For all of us at CTV National News, thank you for watching. Good night and see you tomorrow.